Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the very creepy Greece's version of vampires. They're actually called Vrykolakas. These creatures are the stuff of Greek nightmares, vengeful spirits that rise from their graves to find their unsuspecting victims. And they were a major part of Greek folklore until the vampire craze took over in the 18th century. In fact, tales of these creatures are so vivid and disturbing that you have to wonder why we stopped fearing them. So let us talk about the Vrykolakas and how they were one of the scariest parts of ancient Greek culture. It's complicated. Like most things in Greek folklore, there were many beliefs about what exactly a Vrykolakas was. This made it hard to classify them. Were they demons? Were they ghosts? Or something else entirely? Some scholars believe that the Vrykolakas were originally nature spirits similar to Slavic water demons. Others think they may have been inspired by the monstrous Vrykolakas of Greek mythology, cannibalistic giants who lived in the mountains and feasted on human flesh. But whatever their origins, when the Byzantine era rolled around, the Vrykolakas had become firmly established as undead creatures. And while some viewed them as evil spirits possessing the bodies of the recently dead, others saw them as the souls of sinners trapped between heaven and hell. These beliefs were often at odds with each other, but they all agreed on one thing: the Vrykolakas weren't just monsters. They were dangerous. For one thing, they were incredibly strong. Accounts of Vrykolakas attacks tell of corpses rising from their graves and wreaking havoc on their loved ones. They would beat people to death, toss them around like rag dolls, and even drag them down into their graves. And they weren't picky about who they attacked either. Men, women, children, none were safe from their wrath. But perhaps even more disturbing than their strength was their apparent immortality. For those unfortunate enough to be attacked by a Vrykolakas, death came swiftly and without warning. But what followed was even worse. Instead of finding peace in the afterlife, their souls were doomed to wander the earth for eternity, trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Vrykolakas could even raise other souls to join them in their torment. So not only did they bring death to the living, but they also condemned the dead to the same fate. The most terrifying aspect of these creatures was their relentless pursuit of revenge. Once a Vrykolakas set its sights on someone, there was no escape. They would stalk their victims for days or even weeks, always staying just out of sight. Then when they finally struck, their vengeance was swift and merciless. People reported being attacked by Vrykolakas in their homes, in the streets, even in their own beds. There was no sanctuary from their wrath. But the scariest part of all was that you couldn't fight back. For those who tried to resist a Vrykolakas attack, death was even more brutal and agonizing. And if that wasn't enough to strike fear into your heart, just wait until you heard their eerie cry. Imagine being awakened in the middle of the night by a blood-curdling scream that seemed to come from beyond the grave. That was the sound of the Vrykolakas calling out for its next victim. And once you heard it, you knew that you were next in line. Of course, you might have been able to avoid the Vrykolakas had you known what to look for. After all, these creatures didn't just appear out of nowhere. There were signs that they were near, subtle but important clues that could have saved many lives. For one thing, people reported seeing the Vrykolakas lurking around graves and cemeteries. And if that wasn't enough to scare you away, try spotting a donkey munching on human bones. Yeah, that wasn't just any donkey, it was a sign that a Vrykolakas was close by. If you were smart, you would have stayed away, because the Vrykolakas was known to attack those who trespassed in cemeteries. But if you were unlucky enough to see a white dog sniffing around, you knew that you were in serious trouble. And Vrykolakas often took the form of a white dog, and if you encountered one, you had to get out of there fast. Otherwise, you'd be the next person on their hit list. And then there was the dreaded blood-red foam. If you ever saw that coming from a corpse, you had to run away fast, because that was a sure sign that the Vrykolakas was trying to break free. If you didn't get out of there quick, you'd be caught in the crossfire when the creature finally broke free. Now, you might be wondering how people dealt with these creatures. After all, they were terrifying, strong, and seemingly invincible. So how could anyone hope to defeat them? And different people tried different things with varying degrees of success. Some turned to holy symbols and rituals in hopes of repelling the Vrykolakas, while others relied on more practical methods like locking their doors and staying away from cemeteries. But perhaps the most common tactic was simply ignoring the creature's calls. After all, if the Vrykolakas wanted you dead, they would eventually find a way to get to you. So why make it easier for them? By the time the Middle Ages rolled around, the Vrykolakas had become a staple of Greek folklore. People told stories of their attacks to scare children into behaving well and warn travelers to stay away from certain areas after dark. It was during this time that the belief in vampires really took off, likely due to the fact that both creatures shared many of the same characteristics. In fact, some historians believe that the Vrykolakas was actually the inspiration for the modern vampire myth. As the vampire craze spread throughout Europe in the 18th century, the Vrykolakas largely faded from popular culture, and today they are mostly forgotten outside of Greece. But despite their obscurity, the Vrykolakas remain an important part of Greek folklore. They remind us of a time when the world was full of mystery and danger, and anything could happen after dark. They also teach us the importance of respecting the dead and never trespassing in cemeteries. I mean, really, what could go wrong with a bunch of dead people anyway? Now, if you want to learn more about these scary creatures, there are a few resources available. Fortunately, much of their lore is lost to history, and what remains is often contradictory and hard to understand. But that's part of what makes the Vrykolakas so fascinating. They are a reminder of a time when people believed that the world was full of magic and monsters, and that anything was possible. So if you ever in Greece and you hear a blood-curdling scream in the middle of the night, don't investigate, just run. Speaking of grave danger, if you're watching this video, I'm in grave danger. Let's move on to our next story. This video was made because despite how common vampires are now, not everyone knows that they may have originated from a very different monster. And I figured that it would be interesting to explore the origins of the vampire myth, and the possibility that the Vrykolakas may have been its inspiration. It's a fun and thought-provoking idea, and one that I hope you enjoyed learning about. And hey, maybe you learned something new, who knows? Maybe now you will all be able to impress your friends with your knowledge of Greek folklore and the origins of the vampire myth. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, and maybe even left a comment about what you think. Was the Vrykolakas really the first vampire? What do you think? Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Post new videos every week, and I don't want you to miss out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.